If you like football, then just work hard and do what you can. I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world.
From the day I was born or could talk and understand words, I always wanted to be a professional footballer.
And I can honestly say, having been a lot of clubs, I've never found a camaraderie like we have here. I really haven't.
You know, if I'm away watching a game, the first team you look for is Exeter. When I was on the Football League, you know, how did Exeter get on? Anybody know how Exeter got on? Yeah.
To see the players walk out and that game actually started is a personal sort of high. Sometimes they do it on their own merit. Most of the time it's down to the groundsman.
It's the supporters really that make this club, because without them there would not be any Exeter City.
Any football club with over 100 years of history will have a sea of stories to be told, and Exeter City's Grecians aren't any different. Like any Greek tale, there will be both tragedy, stories of love, lost and won battles, but mostly there will be stories about pride. These are the Grecian Voices. In 1914, the English Football Association received a request from South America to send over a typical English professional football team to help promote football in Brazil and Argentina. Up for the challenge was Exeter City Football Club. With just 15 players under chairman Michael McGay, they set off from Southampton docks heading for a great adventure. After the 3-week-long sea journey, Exeter City started their tour with matches in Argentina. The team then returned to Brazil to play what was considered the first professional football game in Brazilian history. To meet the standard of Exeter City, the Rio de Janeiro team had brought in reinforcements in the form of 4 players from the rival São Paulo club. From a Brazilian point of view, the encounter with Exeter City served as a dry run for the first international to take place later that year. With Brazil being considered one of the best football teams in the world, Exeter City can truly say they have played an important part in footballing history.
I suppose almost from the start I was always interested in the history of the club. I think particularly things like the amazing story of the trip to South America at the time of the First World War. I mean, that just seemed such an exotic and exciting history. Well, I think it's interesting because there were 2 clubs in Exeter, 2 major clubs, Exeter United and St Sibbald's United. And Exeter City was really born out of those 2 clubs. It's a little unclear exactly what happened, but it seems like Exeter United folded, St Sibbald's decided to change their name to Exeter City, and Exeter City, the first Exeter City team was made up of players from both those clubs. So football was already established in the city. Exeter City founded in 1904, and we're still here today, over 100 years later. Well, the main character, and the one I'm really interested in, because I think he is a true city legend, is a guy called Sid Thomas. Now, Sid was only 16 when he started playing for St Sibbald's United, and I think in his first season scored 41 goals. So he was a centre forward, really successful on the field. But what's amazing to me is by the age of 18, he was the club secretary of St Sibbald's. I mean, that's incredibly young. If you think of some of the players today, 18-year-olds, being the club secretary. I mean, it really is a remarkable story. Here you are, you've got a young lad, leading goal scorer at the beginning of the 20th century. He then scores in Exeter City's first ever match. He's the first ever club secretary. He helps set the club up. He's secretary for 35 years. He then becomes a director. He then becomes a chairman. In 1957, he finally stands down as the chairman. There's a financial crisis going on. He donates £50 to a fighting fund to help the club. He becomes club president. So he's still president in the 1960s. So he's been involved in 7 different decades. That, by any stretch of the imagination, is a city legend. And I think Sid Thomas was a real city legend.
Upon their return from South America, the First World War was in full swing and the drain on manpower left the club at a standstill. After the war, legendary goalkeeper Dick Pym was sold to Bolton Wanderers, allowing the club to buy St James's Park outright. Unfortunately, this was just in time to see the main grandstand burn to the ground in 1925. In 1926, the structure for the old grandstand we know today was built. Exeter City started the 30s with one of their more memorable FA Cup runs. But the decade ended prematurely for Exeter as events on the world stage dominated everyone's lives. Football was the last thing on people's minds during the war, and Exeter was temporarily closed down for the duration. Someone who remembers these quiet years for Exeter is Tony Ellis. His earliest memories with the club as a young boy are from those early post-war matches.
Before the Second World War, and obviously football really didn't take place so much in the wartime. We used to play in the local village with a ball in the road, you know. But as soon as it started up again in 46, where I'd have been like 9, 10 years old, I was hooked on it from then. One of the big game that I do remember is Chelsea, and I think it was 1950. And my friend and I, little boys, came in on the first bus from the village, and I can remember in the old cow shed standing on the halfway line, and we felt we were robbed that day because a goal was scored by a guy called Archie Smith, disallowed by the referee, and we went home very disappointed. And yeah, that was it. But yeah, from then onwards, I've followed and been a supporter of the club. 1957, I got demobbed from the Air Force, and in the February, and I came virtually up here. In the 18 months I was here, there were 3 managers. Norman Dodgin was the first one, and he told me I was going to make it, but all I've ended up doing is making the tea, you know. But Norman Dodgin and a guy called Bill Thompson came from Portsmouth, and followed by Frank Broom, quite a well-known, and he was the most successful of the 3 as a manager. So in a short while, like 18 months, we had 3 managers.
The 50s were hard times for Exeter City, both on the pitch and financially. But as the 60s began, the club went from strength to strength with the team's first promotion in 1964 and 2 visits from Manchester United. Even when battling with hard times, players like John Newman, Keith Harvey and Alan Banks were part of a club they could truly be proud of. Alan Banks remembers the special day in 1969.
To be on the pitch with the likes of Dennis Law, Nobby Style, Bestie, Bobby Charlton, you know, it was fantastic for the supporters of Exeter City to have Manchester United coming down here and playing against little Exeter City. It was fun. It really was. It was a great occasion, really. If I had to pick my choice, obviously I've played against Manchester United, I played against Tottenham Hotspur, played against Fulham in the FA Cup, but I think the match I remember mostly was our very last home game in the promotion year. We were playing Chesterfield, and we had to win to give us a good chance of going up. And we played here. It was a Wednesday evening game. We had 10,000 people here, and we just managed to win 6-1. So then the last game was all the way up to Workington, which I think we just had to get a point to make sure of getting promoted. If we finished up 0-0, and obviously it was fantastic afterwards. Then we caught the midnight train from Carlisle to Exeter, and we got into St David's Station around about 7 o'clock in the morning. And when we got there, the station was absolutely packed with supporters outside the station, and it really was. It was very emotional at times.
I've always had that love affair with mainly the supporters of the club. The way the city's laid out, it was my first chance in football. A wonderful, homely club, And at 24, you want to play pro football, and I did. They took a gamble on me. I owed them. I kept thinking, I owe these guys, you know. Although I'm paid money to do what I enjoy best, but I owed these people who go through the turnstiles every day. But I'll never forget the affinity I had with the supporters. And that's what really dragged me back there time and time again, because it's like home. It was like home. What the supporter doesn't see is on the political side of football. What they don't see ain't worth seeing. But what the supporters have got there is a very tight-rein, tight-knit, beautiful, beautiful city that's like spreads out in different areas, Alphingtons and Pinnows and places like that. And they're all the same, you know, and they got time to believe in their religion, which is football. And it's a one-off for me. It's just a one-off, and it suited me.
On the Saturday, Sheffield Wednesday played against Manchester United at Sheffield and beat them, I think it was 4-3. On the Wednesday, they came down here to play in what used to be called the League Cup. And Exeter City played absolutely fantastic and beat them 3-1 here. So the next draw in the round, we got picked against Tottenham Hotspur away at White Hart Lane, which was only a couple of weeks afterwards. And we went to White Hart Lane and got beat 6-3. But we were the only side that season to score 3 goals at White Hart Lane, which was a great achievement for a little club like Exeter City.
The quality was we were a bit more rugged, where we used to have to, you know, if we got injured, for argument's sake, we wouldn't limp. You were taught not to limp. Don't limp. Don't limp, whatever you do, because you show pain. But no, you don't show pain and things like that. But we were rugged, and you take a knock, you gave a knock, and everybody were hard men, you know, and we had to be.
Whereas we were played in mud, you had big heavy boots, a heavy ball. In fact, on a Sunday morning when I was playing, I always had a headache because I played in midfield, as you would call it, you know, defensive midfield, and always had a headache on a Sunday morning. So the equipment, etc. But I think we had more fun. There was more fun amongst the players than there are now. Yeah.
The whole thing in football has changed completely. The kits, the ball, the boots, and the other main thing really is the pitches. The pitches now are fantastic to play on, week in and week out. I mean, it's when we were playing, it used to be, when it rained, it used to be like a bog, you know, it used to be absolutely full of mud. But now the pitches now are absolute like billiard tables.
I come as a volunteer, and then I was asked if I were interested in being here, coming here full time, and I've been here ever since. I love it. You know, we do our bit and the professional does theirs. So.
I mean, the only reason why we come in on a week-to-week basis is to produce something that they're, you know, not only enjoy playing on, but are obviously they're proud of playing on it. It's the only reason why we come in, really. You know, it's not for our benefit at the end of the day, it's for theirs.
But it's fantastic. It's more than the job. It's almost like being part of a community, and you do sort of get drawn along with it and become interested in it.
Put it this way: if I had a sleeping bag up in the stall, I'd stay here.
Well, it started several years ago when the ground staff, the pitch was in quite poor state and needed a lot more work on it. And to save the ground staff having to spend most of the post days after the game clearing the rubbish up, a group of fans got together and decided that they would clear it and thereby allow the ground staff to get on with what they're paid to do, which is make sure the ground and the pitch is in the tip-top condition. There's different groups. If you stand on the big bank, then you're part of the big bank team. If you're in the grandstand, you're in the grandstand team. So there's teams for each of the three main stands, and then there's a few people who go and do the away end afterwards as well.
I used to go up occasionally on a Sunday morning, weed the ground around the entrance with a couple of fans, because the groundsman was so busy. He was on his own up there, trying to keep the football club tidy and also the training ground tidy. One man. So on a Sunday morning I'd go up with one of the fans and we'd spend a few hours with a fork and a shovel tidying up, trying to make it clean. But when the next match came up, people coming to the football club, they walk in and see all the nice and tidy, rather than a load of dandelions.
Since Ivor's days battling dandelions alongside the club's only groundsman, the club has increased its staff tenfold and the quality of the grounds and pitch has come on in leaps and bounds. There can be no doubt that the high quality of the ground has gone a long way to help a strong Exeter City team reach 2 promotions in as many years, something that manager Paul Tisdale is not likely to forget.
That actually was the second year, because we did it the first year as well, which I think that was the major surprise. We'd won at Wembley. A victory parade had been arranged for the following week, and I have to be honest, most of myself, the coaches, most of the players actually were a little nervous about it. We envisaged setting off from St James's Park in our bus and going down the high street and nobody really being there and it being a little embarrassing. So to then drive down the high street and see thousands of people there was at first a surprise, and then it became an incredible experience. So the second year we actually were expecting it. So I think we all were ready to enjoy it and actually take or make the most of it, because the first year was a real surprise and we didn't. I think it just took us by surprise and we sort of missed the opportunity a little. So to get it a year later and to really expect that sort of response from the supporters of the club and was fantastic, and I think we really enjoyed it. And to stand on that bus with literally 10,000 more people in the high street was incredible.
After the previous promotions in 89 and 90, the club underwent major changes in management. Finally, with the club's financial situation reaching breaking point, the fans themselves stepped in. With each fan putting money into the club and a trust being set up to maintain it, Exeter City has become the only club in the country that is owned by its very own supporters. With hard times finally in the past, the club and fans alike have been able to breathe a sigh of relief and enjoy the 2 consecutive promotions. Frank and Roger from the Exec 100 Club remember the impact these last few years have had.
The Trust had worked hard to try and generate money. They'd bought the shares. We'd had problems on and off the pitch at those times. But to see that score on the scoreboard after 90 minutes saying Manchester United 0, Exeter City 0, and bringing them back here for a replay had to be the finest. I cried. I was in tears, as a lot of us were. We were arm in arm. We just didn't believe that something of that nature could be so intense pence, but it saved us. It saved the club. The money that was generated through that was invested within the club through the trust. It supported, and then brilliantly we've got Paul Tisdale come along, take us through 2 promotions, which I must say have been absolutely brilliant as well. I never thought in 1957, although I wanted it dearly, that's when I first started supporting the club, that I would ever see them moving up the Football League ladder. And when we reached the conference and everybody was down, I must say those 4 or 5 years were probably the best that I've experienced whilst with Exeter City, because it took us all back to our roots. This was part and parcel of that process of learning where you came from, learning how much you wanted it, and then building from the base roots up.
It's the camaraderie, I would say, especially here at Exeter City. You know, everybody can have their moans and groans, and they can moan. There's always something to moan about, and we do, if we're honest. We always moan about something. But in general, Exeter City is, and I can say this being from outside of the city rather than being brought up here, Exeter City it's a real, very friendly club. You know, even when before I had met people like Frank and everybody else, when he used to come just to stand on the big bank, it was always friendly. There was very little trouble here. Everybody was always talk to you, especially me being with a different accent. You know, people that want to know where you're from and they talk to you and, who did you used to support and all this. And it was just such a friendly club. And obviously now being part of the exec club, and what we do and what we want to strive to do, you know, we want to, like Frank said, we love to help the community. We love to help the charities and people that, like in Africa, that haven't got things that we have. You know, we want to raise money for the club so we can move on to the championship and, hey, who knows, the premiership. Hey, there's nothing wrong with dreaming.
Someone who's played both a huge role in the club's transformation to being trust-run, but also in the future of the club's youth, is Julian Tagg.
The football club is not just about football, which is a funny thing to say, but it's actually about providing central focus and a facility for the community, for the surrounding areas. So even though in many ways it's about football, it's much bigger than just football, and I think this club is doing exactly that, and that's the challenge from now and in the future to progress and to maintain that ethos.
Another challenge that Julian, alongside others, took on in 1999 was the creation of Exeter City's youth training programme, the Centre of Excellence.
Yes, Mike Radford, who's done a magnificent amount of work for the youth at Exeter City. I was in the old grandstand and my son was playing at that point as a 10, 11-year-old. I said there's some fantastic things going on in the city in terms of organisation of youth, but very little quality coaching of any sort. That was what I was doing. I was a lecturer at Exeter College and was coaching all aspects, but particularly football, of course. And he said, well, why don't you help me start a team? So with another man, I started that team. It's an under-12 team. And one of the ones there was Sean Cannon was in that team that became a professional here and went on to Notts County. But also there was a young 11-year-old called Dean Moxey that was in that team who had the privilege of coaching until he was probably 15, nearly 16.
As a youngster, probably all of these boys out here just think they want to be footballers as well. And I was lucky enough to get the chance under Eamon Dolan at Exeter City, and I took it from there. And obviously as a youngster, you don't think you're going to be a footballer, but you want to be a footballer. Every young boy wants to be a footballer or a sportsman, and like I said, I'm lucky to have the career I've had so far. It takes me back, yeah. So these cold, windy days, and see my parents standing on the sidelines freezing as well. You see the light in their face when they run in and pay their money and get back out there and just kick a ball around. I think it's fantastic. The club's starting them really young, and hopefully some of these players can go on and come through the team and get into the team and do well, hopefully. All me and my mates wanted to do at that age was play football, and hopefully, well, luckily, a couple of us got into the Exeter City Centre of Excellence, and a couple of my mates are still playing now, so it's good. It's good. Well, Exeter City have got a great youth setup anyway, so it's fantastic for them to keep going now.
With new young players joining Exeter City's first team and some moving on to other clubs, it's no surprise that so much of Exeter's youth dream of becoming professional footballers.
Well, we come up here every day. We go to college on a Monday morning, come back here and train in the afternoon, train all day on a Tuesday, college on a Wednesday, and train on Thursday, Friday, game on a Saturday. So a pretty packed week, yeah, but hard work, but it's got to be done. Oh yeah, it's been good really, because we've get given a chance here. Like, young players are getting given a chance, so we've got the chance to impress, just got to take it.
I've been coming here for about 2 years. Yeah.
And I've probably been coming here just under 2 years.
It's quite good actually.
Yeah.
Quite proud being part of it.
The first team's quite high, like League One, so more people will probably hear of us, and then it just sounds better to play for them as well.
Yeah, it's a good team to play for.
Yeah.
On Tuesdays we do keeper training, then we get changed to go indoors, and then we watch like a CD of ourselves like playing the last match. Or we can watch like the greatest goals if the match was called off last week. We do like in-lap poles, diving, hurdles, ladders. We do we do like we have goals. We do forwards, scoot. We do lots of stuff.
You've got to feel sometimes proud of yourself, because we go off and play teams like, when it's in like pre-season, we go and play Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool, and I think we might be playing Arsenal this year.
You get to score goals, pass it around, and do what you want to do really, and do what the coaches say. Don't just wander off. You've got to listen to the coaches all the time.
For me, I look up at like the defenders, like they got a new person called Troy Archibald-Henry, and I see what he does sometimes to get some ideas, so it's quite good.
I look at the strikers in midfield because I normally play on the left, so when it comes on I need to know where to take it on, when to pass, when to cross it, so I look at them and they do exactly the same what I just said.
Because even when you stay with Exeter, they sometimes say to like the Premiership teams, can you come down and play us? So Exeter plays some Premiership teams sometimes. So.
I think the fact that we're owned by the fans, owned by the trust, I think that's very symbolic, and so people actually feel this is their club in a real sense of the word.
But it's 11 against 11, and you're fighting for your own identity, your own city's identity or your town's identity, and those 11 guys out there are fighting for you, and those other 11 guys are fighting for them, and everybody comes to watch it.
And I must admit, the fans here have been really very special to me. They've been very kind to me in both my spells being here.
It's fantastic. I love this place, and you see what they're doing to the club now. Is only one way, and their going is up. So
I don't think this is the end. I don't think this is the best it's ever going to be. I think there's potential for better.
I always look for Exeter's result. I've been up at 6 o'clock in the morning in the South Pacific with my little shortwave radio listening to BBC World Service to get this started. And people, I used to work with Norwegians and different nationalities, and they look at you as if you're mad, which you probably are actually.
We've heard Grecian voices, young and old, from the past and from the future, and one thing seems clear. With Exeter City pushing their way up through the football leagues, the club in the safe hands of the Trust and the youth teams progressing further every year, St James's Park is heading towards a very bright future.